What is up, everybody? Hello and welcome to another Bearded Men of Real Estate show. I'm Ray. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
And that's Dan. And we are both bearded real estate agents, which make us the perfect host for the only show in America called the Bearded Men of Real Estate show. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We are broadcasting this live on Facebook, YouTube, and Clubhouse. So feel free to join us on any one of those. If you're looking for us on Clubhouse, there's two ways to find us. You can look for me or Dan. Dan, the Android user, is now on Clubhouse. So welcome, Dan.
I started pushing when Ray started doing this. I started pushing. I called the actual developers and I was like, guys, you got to get me on. So I got an early invite. Now I've actually invited a bunch of friends. So go follow me over there on the Clubhouse.
I'm pretty sure the whole reason why Droid users are on here is so Dan could join, because we were, I think we were the first podcast to broadcast in all three locations from Clubhouse. So it's kind of neat.
I think I'm going to say we still are. Does anyone else doing it?
No, there are others now. There are others. There's some pretty big ones now, actually.
They followed suit. By the way, the setup. Yeah, they followed suit with our. By the way, to get to this setup, just Matt and Ray alone, just to get this happening was a big deal. So
it took about a week and a half to figure out. Now it's so simple, but it took about a week and a half initially to figure out how to do it. You can also comment live and we can display your comments just like Mario Flores did. He said, "What up, guys?" D Jones says, "Hey, Beards." Hey, D. Thanks for joining the show. Dusty Martin checks in. Good morning, Bearded Men. And then Mike Elizabeth Rodell said, "Wait, Dan, you're on Clubhouse? Send me an invite." Yeah.
Wait, is that Mike or Elizabeth?
That's Elizabeth. And she is also a Droid user. So she can get on Clubhouse now.
Oh, this is
cool. Cool. So William is in the room. So I'm going to kind of tell on William a little bit. So William was talking about this Clubhouse stuff, and I was in Clubhouse and kind of clicking around on stuff, but I was just like, I would go into this room and there'd be one guy like trying to sell me his course on whatever, right? Like wholesaling real estate or on, flipping houses and how to be a better real estate agent. And it was all this like wholesaling or selling of courses all the time. And I kept telling William, like, I don't know why you like this thing. Like everywhere I go, everyone's trying to sell me stuff. I just don't like it. And then William said, you just have to find the right groups. So I wound up joining the real estate networking group, which is one that I think William founded, and it's moderated by all kinds of incredible, talented moderators who are also really good at real estate, and they have the chops. And, because I was skeptical at first, like basically everybody I met on Clubhouse, I was like, wait, are they actually legit? And I would go look them up, and they are. So in the real estate networking group, that's a good one. The Zillow Killer group, that's also another one. But then outside of that, you just kind of got to be careful where you go. But I know those are watched pretty closely. So join those. If you're a Droid user, those are the two Clubhouse rooms that you got to join. But we have a bunch of news and stuff to talk about today. And if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, be sure to share this, because that's the only way this stuff gets out. It's the only way we have a productive discussion is if you guys will talk about it. What's up, Carly? She just posted or popped up in the Clubhouse. So home buyers are the most pessimistic they've been in a decade. And another headline says, most Americans now believe it's a good time to buy.
Literally the same day. The article's from the same day.
So we're going to talk about those two opposing articles, weekly mortgage refinance demand. We're going to talk about this controversial proposal. I'm putting controversial in air quotes. Yeah. This doesn't seem like it should be controversial. Controversial proposal to require addresses on MLS listings. What?
I just don't get that. I'm going to save it because I just don't get it. But
we're gonna dig into that. There's also one part of this that talks about sending sold data. So there's a lot of MLSs, including ours, that have turned off the ability to send sold data to third-party resources and websites. That means,
by the way, you're going to want to hear my feedback on that one, 100%.
Yes, I want to know this. But if I had a cloud CMA or something like that would, help get information into the hands of my clients, then I wouldn't be able to connect that and use it. So this is a little concerning. Volume-hungry mortgage lenders loosen credit standards.
Oh my God, the return of
are we headed for a crash? We're going to talk about that. And amid the expansion, Open Door lost 27, or I'm sorry, not just 27.
No.
Open Door lost $270 million in Q1. Alternate headline for the same report: Open Door bounces back in first quarter. So we're going to talk about Open Door 2 at the end of the show. And then I guess this is a bit of the breaking news. Forbearance is now under 5%. So we're going to go into details about all those headlines. Stick with us. If you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, go down to the description. There's timestamps with a little headline there. So be sure to watch that. Subscribe and hit that bell on our YouTube channel, because we also release each one of these stories over time in a BMORE chop. So if you can't catch the whole show today, that's cool. Just stay as long as you can. But if you're subscribed to all of our stuff, then you'll get updated over time. We also have a podcast. So wherever good podcasts are, that's where we are. So just
do it, Ray. Do it.
Tell your smart
do
speaker.
It. No, do it.
Okay.
Alexa,
play the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show podcast. So there you go. Some of your Alexas just went off and now you can hear it. So now you have to say, Alexa, stop. So there you go. That was for you too.
So you just started and stopped.
And stopped the Alexa. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, everybody. So Dan, before we get into all these headlines, would you tell everyone what BMORE is all about?
You know, I would love to. Now, when Ray and I met here on the interwebs, when did Al Gore start it?
Let's see.
92.
Yeah. Was that when it was just me, you, and Al Gore on the internet?
It was me, you, Al Gore, and then he created belts, I think, too, at the time. But that's when I met Ray. I'm obviously a bearded man, and I happen to work in real estate, but I had an idea for a show. And when I met Ray, I noticed something very interesting about him.
What's that, Dan?
He is a collector of fine vintage china.
So the china we have, we actually debated this, because the china we have, we're in a southern state, and we didn't want the super bougie stuff. So we wound up buying the super bougie southern stuff. So if you've ever checked this out, it's called Woodland Spode. So that's the name of our china, and we collect these little pieces, and like there's this Christmas set that we have to have apparently. And so yes, that
you have to have. Yeah,
you are right. We do collect fine china, but it's not the it's the southern looking fine china. So you're absolutely correct.
So in case you don't know, I make up a fun thing that I noticed about quote unquote noticed about Ray. And every week I make it up. It's based in zero reality. And every week Ray has some sort of story. And I told him before the show, if you're listening in Clubhouse, you heard me say it. I'm going to get you this week. By the way, let's make that point. You get a little bit of pre-production value when you're in the Clubhouse.
When you're in the Clubhouse, you hear a little bit of that. Yeah.
So anyway, I told him, I'm going to get you. He did not even hesitate. He went right into fine china collections.
It's true. I mean, it's a lot of weird experiences.
Yeah. Anyway, I obviously noticed he's a beautifully bearded man, but what I also noticed, he loves giving value up front to not only his clients, but also just to humans in general. So the show's about being more as an agent, but also being more as a human.
And one of the things we believe being more is about is knowing what in the world is going on in the market so that you could be a good guide for your clients. So that's why we cover these news articles. It's not just to talk about something on the internet. We actually do want to provide some value there so that you have one spot to go to get a good summary of everything that's happening in the market. And then once you have that summary, you can go about your business and kind of know what's going on. But I will promise you, if you will watch the show, you'll pick up at least one tip that's going to help you sell something. And you'll pick up something that will come out in conversation with one of your clients or friends, and they're going to look at you and go, "Oh, really? That's what's happening?" Well,
yeah, and it's current,
and it's all current stuff. So it's all anything that happened over the week,
and to add with this Clubhouse stuff, I mean, the value we've added, because we already bring amazing value. Obviously, Ray and I do, but just adding the Clubhouse, all the input we get. I mean, we had an actual reporter, a journalist from Housing Wire, an actual economist that we've shared on the show before. He spoke 2 or 3 episodes ago, and I mean,
yeah, that's cool.
The value there was insane. So you're all welcome.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about Clubhouse too. William calls it the magic of Clubhouse. You could be talking about something, and then somebody pops into that room or is already listening in that room that has either a specific set of expertise or is literally part of the company that you're talking about. So that's happened 3 times with us so far. So
they jump in and they're all, well, actually,
hey, do you mind if I talk about this? I'm the COO.
I actually created the product. Oh,
yes, please. All right. So with that, Dan, are you ready to get into these headlines? We got a lot to talk about.
Not yet. Sorry. Hold on.
Are you eating ice?
I just ate some ice. Okay, now I'm ready.
All right, let's go.
So refreshing every week.
All right, friends. And just like that, we are now into the headlines. So let's first talk about this news article. We're actually going to cover two news articles at the same time. Number one, this is from CNBC. Home buyers are the most pessimistic they've been in a decade, thanks to tight supply and high prices.
Oh, that sucks.
It's tough to be a home buyer today. Supply of homes for sale is at a record low. Home builders are slow to step up, and prices are rising the fastest pace in nearly 2 decades. Let's talk about why home builders are slow. I don't think they're just slow because it's fun to be slow. I mean, it's a supply constraint too on the materials as well. So no wonder sentiment among home buyers fell to the lowest level in a 10-year history of Fannie Mae's monthly home purchase sentiment index. So the data here that I'm about to talk about, these percentages come from Fannie Mae's monthly home purchase sentiment index. And if you go to CNBC, you can see the full sentiment index. There's a link to it in the article. So the percentage of respondents who said it's a good time to buy a home decreased from 53% to 47%, while the percentage who said it's a bad time increased from 40% to 48%. So now the number officially has flipped. 48% of people think it's a bad time. 47% of people think it's a good time. So here's a quote from Doug Duncan. He's a senior vice president and chief economist at Fannie Mae. He said the decrease in home buying sentiment likely indicates that some consumers, potentially flush with savings, perhaps boosted in part by stimulus payments, may be attempting but failing to buy a home due to the heightened competition for relatively few listed homes. And what I want to hear from, especially if you're in the clubhouse, if you're joining us, are you still seeing a supply constraint in your area? Are you still seeing a shortage of inventory? Also, are you seeing more and more properties come on the market? They said consumers specifically with incomes between 50,000 and 100,000 were particularly pessimistic. And another record,
a lot of sense, by the way.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. In another record, 48% of homes sold for more than their list price. It's up 20 percentage points from the same period a year earlier. Home prices more than 11% up from a year ago. Now we're starting to enter this week and next week. We will start to enter that time period in which the market started to recover. The showings on homes began to increase last year about this time, and then more properties were going under contract last year about this time. So as we talk about the closings, we still have about another, I would say 3 weeks or so before some of those closings that started happening last year that were the record number of closings, record number of prices, before that really takes effect. And then we could kind of compare what was going on. So we'll kind of see how that looks. So that is Article 1. That's on CNBC. Article 2.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. That's my infomercial. Oh, we have a video coming out, by the way. Anna Bridges did an incredible job. We filmed this last year, but then she went on vacation. We have some stuff. So now we're finally about to release this. And it is an infomercial for real estate. It's going to be a lot of fun. So follow me on the interwebs and you'll see that. All right. So here it is. Most Americans now believe it's a good time to buy a home, despite soaring house prices. And here's why. So this is a Gallup survey. They say 53% of Americans believe it's a good time to buy. And if you go to let's see, this is on realtor.com. It's from Market Watch. Jacob Passy, he's the guy that wrote it. You can go to their report and there's a link to the actual Gallup article. So feel free to use that. By the way,
if you scroll through, Ray, you'll see how many actual Americans they polled. Did you see that?
Yes, I saw that earlier.
It's 1,000.
Okay, 1,000 Americans, based on 1,000 Americans, 53% of them, 530.
Right, which is what percentage of the actual Americans? I mean, there's 320 million of us.
No. This is accurate. 53% of Americans now believe it's a good time to buy a home, according to Gallup. So the number's not that. And like, if you look at these two polls, right, totally different people, totally different polling. It's basically as good as a political poll, right? 53% people say now's a good time to buy a home. Fannie Mae says 47%. You know, the difference is 6%. Is that plus or minus?
It's a wash, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say about half. That's how you shorten this. About half of Americans think it's a good time. About half of Americans think it's a bad time.
Because you could take that 53%, and if it was 57%, then you could spin it and go, however they spun it on the first one, home buyer sentiment in the red, with this
right.
poll or whatever. It could have been something too, instead of the spin that 53% is better than 47.
Right. Gallup found that 71% of Americans believe that home prices are going to increase over the next year in the local market. And there is a great item to point out to those of you who are real estate agents and you're looking in your market, you're wondering, where's the silver lining here? How are buyers going to buy now with all the inventory and all the trouble they have to go through? 71% of Americans believe that home prices will increase over the next year in their local market. So they don't see that there's a end in sight. And we've talked about this before, so I'll just kind of briefly mention it again. Over history, there's only been 2 recessions in which house prices have gone down. All other recessions that have been recorded, home prices have gone up 2 to 6%. So even if you thought home prices were, even if you thought there was going to be something major in the future that was going to happen and home prices were going to completely tank, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like, even if the economy tanks, I mean, it doesn't look like home prices will be far behind it. So it looks like home prices are going to continue to increase. You'll see the headlines that say home price gain slow. And that's what I think most Americans believe as well.
Well, and obviously the crash from 12 years ago or 13 years ago, whatever that was 19%, right, Ray?
Yeah. So in 2008, 9, when that recession took place, home prices decreased 19.1%, I believe it was.
Yeah.
In previous recessions, the other decrease was only 1.9%. So
right,
huge difference there. and because, which we'll get to later, because of the lending constraints being so tight for most Americans right now, it appears that the overall financial health of everyone who's buying and selling properties is way better off than it was in 2008. But we need to talk about this because later we're going to cover an article that may be concerning for those of us in that camp.
Well, and on this point, I kind of want to say, we've mentioned on the show, and then I kind of am having this conversation with my buyers, my current buyers, is buyer fatigue is going to be a real thing. And I think this is the stats showing that that's a real thing. People are just going to go look. I mean, especially in that kind of, the article mentions the $50,000 to $100,000 income per year bracket, where they're just like, I can't get anything. I'm going to wait. And even if they see home prices going up, maybe that means more sellers will come on the market. Maybe that means less buyers will be in the market. I'll try again in a few months. I think buyer fatigue is or will be a real thing. And I think this is part of it. It's going to be a lot more. So I kind of, although I don't like the headline, the negative headline, I side more with that. Like, it's just a tough time. Because, I mean, I've been working with one set of buyers for 5 months now, and we've written 12 offers. I just literally before the show submitted our 12th offer. And it's in a very competitive market. And, but they're still positive, like, okay, cool. We're a bridesmaid again. We're eventually will be the bride, like.
So I invited.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I invited Lisa Wood to speak because she's also in Clubhouse, but she left a really good comment. So Lisa, if you're listening, hit that because I want to see if I can bring you up to talk about it in Clubhouse. But D Jones says she's at an open house every weekend and there's homes, but 20-minute lines. She said she sees homes go under contract, then financing falls through, then back active, and they increase the price by 15 to 20,000 in their market.
Well, that's the offer they got. I mean, they got that offer. They went into escrow at that. Now that seller wants that, which honestly, if depending on why it fell out, I would advise the seller, leave it at the price we had it. We got a lot of offers. We got a lot of, traction. Leave it at the same price. And then, I don't know. I've seen that too, where you see that increase, that green arrow up. At least we have that in our MLS. Where is D again? What D, if you want to comment, which market are you in?
She said they're paying recording fees, transfer tax, offering cleaning services to move out. Wow.
Yeah. My buyers are covering, we'll do no appraisal contingency. We're covering the home warranty, which is typically a seller paid thing.
Okay, I'll put her comment up here, even though I asked her to come up and speak. I'd rather have you say this out loud, Lisa.
Yeah.
But that's okay. She said, we're trying to buy an investment property in Charlotte for our daughter and 2 friends to live in. We lost out on 2 offers due to our budget. We've learned how hard it is when people come in 10 to 20% over budget, no inspection, no contingencies, large due diligence. Plus, Redfin reported the buyers are also offering gifts like trips to the Caribbean.
Where's that story?
Wow. Really? We need to find this. Okay, Lisa, I want to know more about this. Wait, let me put up the Clubhouse group. All right, Clubhouse crew in the house. Lisa, tell me more about this. What are you talking about? Gifts like trips?
Yeah, so we are, and if you echo in the background, it's because I got your Facebook going on back there. So we are trying to buy an investment property over in Charlotte. And our goal is that the 2 roommates who just graduated college will be able to pay the mortgage, since we're putting the money up front for our daughter. So what we are finding is that on average 10 to 20% over asking price. And we've gone in on 2 homes $10,000 over. We increased our due diligence and we don't have any contingencies. So according to the realtors, we look like we have a strong offer. My husband found an article on Redfin the other day that is proven to be true, that 10 to 20% over. People are waiving contingencies, waiving inspections, and then they're coming in with love letters, which we were told are illegal, but still giving love letters, sending photos of their families. One buyer came in, paid all cash, $50,000 over the asking price, found out that the homeowners liked the ocean and threw in a vacation trip to his villa in the Caribbean, and they accepted.
That's
as a buyer who we have a budget, not to mention as an interior designer, I'm not opposed to finding a fixer-upper, but I am blown away at the quality of homes that are coming on the market, and they're coming in selling as is. They won't give you photos. You can't get in to see it. It's like you buy it, take on our problems, and have at it. And they're selling, a 1,200 square foot home or 1,400 square foot home for $250,000. And I know what it costs to upgrade stuff. And as an investor, you want to look at those 5 important key elements, right? Foundation, electrical, plumbing, roof, etc., HVAC. And I'm just blown away at the quality. And then the lack of response by the realtors. So the listing agents won't answer our realtors' information. They ignore the requests. And it's just, I don't know if they're new and they don't have an understanding of what it's like to be a professional. And we had one offer that the homeowners put their house on the market. We made an offer and they were too busy to look at the listing or at the offers because they were on a conference. And it's like, well, why would you put your house on the market if you're not going to even answer the response? So our money was tied up for a week and a half and we couldn't make any other offers. And these homes are out in Charlotte are selling in 2-3 days, sight unseen. So it's crazy. I don't understand. I haven't bought a house in 16 years. So this is a little nutty for me.
Hey, can I blow her mind real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. What was that?
So I just want to blow your mind real quick. So the offer that I just submitted, we offered $250,000 over asking.
Wow.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's listed at 950. We offered 1.2.
But did you include the trip to the Caribbean? Because you still may not get it, Dan.
I know. I didn't think to do that, to send them to my private island.
Tim McGraw and Faith Hill have that private island, 35-something million. You can just
35 million. I saw that.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing,
Well,
Lisa.
I made a joke and put it on my Instagram page about that we couldn't compete with the Caribbean, but we do. And my siblings and I own a raw piece of land on the east side of El Paso, Texas, and that you could bring your camper and tent. We don't have any accommodations. You can view the mountains. You could go across to Mexico and potentially get to White Sands and the Carlsbad Caverns.
Wait, isn't there a wall
I don't know if
there?
that would offer any incentive for a buyer, but we do have it.
That's amazing. So, pardon my dad joke, but you'd definitely be putting in an intense offer. Nah.
Intense.
It's terrible. Oh my gosh.
Try.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for the additional
and
information.
And on that note, we're going to end the show.
Can you have your husband also send me that article that he found? If he can re-find it, maybe in his search history or something like that, shoot me that article. Because whenever I type in seller gifts or seller gifts Redfin. All I'm seeing is about gifts,
Closing
great
gifts.
gift ideas for real
Yeah.
estate agents, which, you know, that's also a wonderful search that more consumers should do maybe. But no, that's what I'm seeing there. So yeah,
The
if you
best
can hook me
gift
up
is
with
your referrals.
that. Oh my gosh.
I will send it to you. And Ray, if you want to go camp on our site in El Paso, I'll be more than happy to give you the address.
You know, I might do it. I wouldn't put it past me. That's for sure. All right. So let me get to some of these other comments here. Dusty Martin says, my market has a lot of part-timers and newbies in my market. So yeah, that's a factor, but also the homes that aren't even able to be financed in most cases are selling for 5% over list. Wow.
So cash.
Hasna says, the bearded men. Hey, how are you?
Hi.
D Jones says, even though homes are already as is, I'm also seeing a trend of, quote, this home being sold strictly as is in the remarks. With
Now,
this
I always
issue in the future.
I always find that interesting because, and it may differ. You know, remember we're a worldwide show. We are world famous.
That's right. That's right. Number 16 real estate or number 16 news show.
Yeah.
In Taiwan. Just
in
so
Taiwan.
you know.
Just that. So you guys are currently listening to and watching the number 16 news, not real estate news podcast in Taiwan.
You could say we're in the top 20 of newscasts somewhere in the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's a legit headline, right? So anyway. But I want to make the point that I'm in Southern California, just outside of LA, Los Angeles, not Lower Arkansas. Every single house is sold as is, whether it's stated or not. That's the seller's right. Hey, this house is as is. We'll guarantee no repairs. We won't, offer any credits. It's been that way since I've been doing this for 10 years. And you'll still this. And I see those statements. It's sold strictly as is, almost saying like, because when I'm on the buy side, we still have our rights to do our inspections. We can do any inspection we want. We can have mold out there. We can have obviously the general physical, anything we want, and we can still ask for stuff, and you can still maybe say no. But I've also seen, as I scroll through listings, I see $5,000 credit for repairs, termite done. I still am seeing those things. It's just they're putting it out there, and and I get it. I understand it, where the seller won't do any repairs, but if something major pops up that any buyer's going to see, you're going to do that repair, because if you have a legit home that has it's not a fixer upper, it doesn't need an investor. It needs a new buyer, but it needs 10 grand in roof repairs. You're going to go ahead and handle those roof repairs. Any buyer's going to see that. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Well, in our market, there's two options people can, I'm going to say click on, because it's, contract is now digital. There's two options to click on there. One is as is, and one is inspection, where they get to inspect within 10 business days, et cetera.
Yeah, we can remove ours. So wait, you can say we're just looking at this house as is?
Well, if you click as is, you don't even have the right to inspect.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you're actually, whenever you waive the right to inspect in Arkansas, there is no way out for you based on condition inspection. Right. Yeah.
And we can waive our inspection. We totally can, but and my investors will do that. It's just waived up front, and they only need 3 days to get in, view the property, make sure we're good, and then we close in another 12 or whatever. But yeah, but every normal buyer they do their inspection.
Yeah, Dusty Martin says Arizona recently, which is the same type of contracts as California. Yeah. We can still ask, but more and more sellers are laughing hysterically while they howl, no.
Yeah, if it's minor stuff. So what I have seen a trend in is buyers just all of a sudden that, the flooring that's peeling up or the paint that's a little chipped, all of a sudden that's not as important. So I am seeing a lot of that too. But if something major is going on, you're still going to want to address that, because that's going to be an issue. And I'm also seeing, I saw one the other day. It said in the agent notes, seller will not provide a home warranty. Do you know the kind of legal issues you can get into if you do not provide a home warranty? Now, the buyer can pay for it, but it's highly recommended by your broker that you get one of those. And I don't know what it is in other states, but I think listing agents are getting a little too cocky right now. They need to be real careful, would be my advice.
So I'd love to know how this kind of affects appraisals. If you see an appraisal where one is asking for that and one is not asking for that, is that valued differently? How's that looked at? I tried to invite Scap up, but I think he's busy. But
well, you mentioned that last week, Ray. What appraisers are looking at what was offered and what they will pay for it and what it was originally asked for. So if there's a $50,000 difference, they're taking that into account. So I'm wondering if, hey, we're not asking for any repairs. The house is fine. We don't care about the hole in the wall. Like, are they taking that into account? And also, is it a in-person inspection, or are they just doing a curbside?
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. Well, you would think with all this discussion about home buyers being so pessimistic and all that kind of stuff that the number of mortgage applications would actually be dropping, right, Dan?
Yeah, people aren't buying anymore. You know, that's all
Yeah.
pessimistic. It's pessimistic. That's a tough word to
Oh,
say. But
wait, hang on.
Yep.
Scap is up. So Scap is a guy I met on Clubhouse who is an appraiser and he knows his stuff. So I want to ask him, whenever you see a contract that says I'm buying as is, we're not even looking at the inspection, we're paying over list, how does an appraiser view that contract versus a contract with the traditional inspection contingencies in there, Scap?
There's really no, I mean, when I'm looking at the contract, I mean, trying to look at everything there, but I mean, the inspection doesn't really affect me. I'm looking, you know, if they're buying it as is, I mean, I'm going to appraise it for market value no matter what it says in the contract, you know, so it could say as is, we're going to waive this inspection and so on and so forth. But I'm still doing my job to compare apples to apples and still appraising that property for what I believe it to be, in my professional opinion, using the correct comps in the market. So, you know, that's all the stuff that has to go on between the buyers and sellers and everything. For an appraiser standpoint, that doesn't really affect me, regardless, you know, whether it's they're waiving an inspection or anything like that, because I really don't pay unless an inspection report's sent to me. And there's lots of issues with the home and everything. Well, yeah, I'll look at that, maybe consider some of that in my analysis. But typically, I don't get any kind of inspection reports or anything like that. I'm just doing my observation, and then whatever happens after the fact, if there's things found within an inspection, you know, it's between your buyers and your sellers to kind of negotiate, you know, things and money and moving things. So from an appraiser standpoint, doesn't really affect me. Now, when I see things in the contract that, you know, are kind of wonky, like, you know, that appraisal gap coverage and all this other stuff, you know, that kind of sets me off a little bit, where I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, that's what you're agreeing to, but I'm just trying to make sure when I get a contract, just to make sure that I'm covering everything on there, making sure it's a fully executed contract. Any concessions or any kind of gifts or anything like that I would need to put into my report to consider value-wise.
So whatever you're looking at, it's not the I'm buying this as is, no inspections or anything. It's when they say, I'm going to offer you $100,000 over list price, and I'll cover up to $20,000 if it doesn't appraise. What does that do to your brain as an appraiser? I can't imagine.
In my mind, it just makes me just go sit back and go, what the hell is going on here? What are you thinking about?
What are you doing?
Agreeing to these kinds of terms. I know people have their own motivations, their own reasons for buying a house, and their own reasons for spending their own money. But when I'm doing an appraisal for a lender, again, I'm doing it for the lender, for them to assess their risk. I'm not trying to appraise it for purchase price. So when I see something like that in my contract, yeah, I shake my head, I scratch my head, but I'm still doing my job to appraise that property for what it's worth in the marketplace. And then again, that's up to the buyers and sellers to figure that stuff out afterwards. You know, if they want to, how much more money they want to spend or what they're going to do. But when I see things like that in the contracts, I just shake my head. I have no idea. I personally would never agree to something like that. But again, that's my own motivations, emotions, and stuff talking.
That's good. Well, thanks for coming up and adding some insight on that. And from the real estate agent's perspective, whenever we're looking at this and we see somebody offering over appraised value, appraisals they're good data, but the sell prices of the properties that you have to go by in order to obtain an appraisal that proves that value is in arrears. And so what you're seeing is that the market value, quote unquote, that daily market value is moving faster than homes are able to close to prove that day's market value. So there's a seller or a buyer that says, you know, I'm willing to pay that because that's the value to me. Well, that's all a buyer is ever willing to pay, is what the value is to them. So even in a situation in which there's a list price, in like 3 years ago, someone posted in one of those real estate groups recently, are you an irresponsible agent for letting your clients pay over list price for these homes?
No.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, 3 years ago, were you an irresponsible agent for letting your seller accept a price that's lower than list price? Like, that's ridiculous. Your clients want to buy a house and they want to pay what they want to pay, and that's all they're going to pay. So in that situation where they know it will not appraise, it will not become a lendable value on behalf of the bank for what I am willing to pay for it, because the market has not caught up to that. There haven't been enough closings in that price range yet, and the market's moving faster than the closings are happening. So I'm willing to put additional money to this to make sure that the seller knows that I'm willing to, quote, close the appraisal gap, which also hopefully, SCAP, will help us to get some more data as properties are closing, and hopefully, and as buyers are starting to calm down a little bit, maybe we're going to see the increase in prices from all these closings that have happened, where people are offering above asking. They're going 110%, 105%, in some cases 120% above the list price. Eventually those homes are going to close, and then that will be the new data that SCAP is pulling from to prove value. So I think it's just going to take a little bit for the market to keep up, or to catch up with what's currently happening. And then I think the data for all of us will be a little bit better. Is that right, Scap? Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I agree with it. I mean, you just got to remember, a lot of people have this misconception that, appraisers are just using past data, and, they use comps from last year and this is a different market. Well, we may use past data, but we use current market trends to balance that out with. So if I see that the market's increasing at, say 0.3%, per month over the last, 6 to 12 months, and I'm using a comp from 8 months ago, well, then I'm going to apply that percentage increase to that comp to make it equal to what it should be worth in that market today based upon those trends. So we're trying to keep up as fast as we can. We're analyzing the market and we're trying to keep up with those trends and those increases on those past sales. But like you said, once some of these other homes that go under contract, once they close and people are paying out the wazoo, are just paying, throwing down money, 50 grand over what it was listed for, then, those sales, they get in there, they're going to become new comparables. But like you said, the way this market is, just like every day, it's one thing after another, and it's just constantly changing. So it will take time to catch up. But, again, anybody can we can pay whatever they want for an asset. It may be worth it. It may be worth $100,000 more to you because you have these motivations, these emotions, and these reasonings for paying that much, where 20 other people may just stop their bidding process and say, well, that's not worth it to me to pay that much. So you can pay whatever you want for the asset. It's just that when it comes down to it, for a bank lending the money, we're trying to do our best to give them the most accurate current data that we can. And, hey, that's just what it is. If you're listing a house, you're using the same data to list the house that we are, and then you're getting all these multiple offers over top of it. It's crazy, but we're trying to do our best.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Using the comparative market analysis approach alone, not enough. You have to make some adjustments for the current market, as you said. So that's good. Well, thanks for joining the show, Scap. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the additional info from the appraiser's perspective. So, Dan, right before you came up, we were about to talk about these mortgage with all the prices and everything that's happening, and then the pessimism in the market, quote unquote pessimism, depends on what poll you're looking at. Then you would think that buyers are going to be pulling back, right? But what's actually happening?
So a brief drop in mortgage interest rates sent some buyers rushing to their lenders to see if they could get any savings. So that sent total mortgage applications. So these are, we've always talked about rate sensitivity on the show. And what we've really noticed is that refis are very, very, like, they're watching, they're waiting, all right, cool. I'm at 3.8%. Oh, they went down to 3.5. I'm going to go check, you know what I mean? But that sent total mortgage application volume up 2.1% last week from the previous week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. The average contract interest rates for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage with conforming loan balances decreased to 3.11. By the way, I thought they were going to just keep going up and up and up and up.
All right.
You know what I mean? But that's down from 3.18. That is the lowest rate since February, and is 32 basis points lower than 1 year ago. So they hadn't hit all-time lows yet. As a result, applications to refinance a home, remember, not purchase, which have been weak lately, increased 3% for the week but we're still 12% lower than a year ago, according to the MBA's seasonally adjusted index. The decline, and this is a quote from, let's see, who is this? This is Joel Kahn. This is my favorite every week. I don't even care what the article is, as long as he has a quote in the article. I'm doing it. The decline in rates helped. This is a quote from the man himself. The decline in rates helped the refinance index reach its highest level in 8 weeks, driven by a 4% increase in conventional refinances. He goes on to say, additionally, refinance loan balances increased for the 4th straight week, an indication that higher balance borrowers acted to take quick advantage of lower rates. And then I always like to make this final note from these articles, but mortgage demand from home buyers rose just 1% for the week. So that kind of sucks, right, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, it's just 1%, but it was still what?
But it was 13% higher than a year ago.
Now, keep in mind, last year, and I think we said this earlier in the show, there was this little U, and the U was the number of showings dropped drastically in April and started to climb again in May. And now we are towards the end of May. We should start seeing more mortgage applications.
It's gonna be May
contract. And so we'll see how the year-over-year comparison is. But this year, it's just going to be a weird annual year-over-year comparison, and we're probably going to say that every week because it seems like there was just a delay in what was happening in the market, and then it shot off. And so I don't know. It's going to be weird.
You know, Ray, I have to ask this question. We haven't had any controversies on the show yet this week. Are there any controversies out there that we need to talk about or discuss?
The main controversy is how you're saying the word controversy.
That's controversy. I speak proper English. I'm actually from England.
Oh, man.
I didn't know that. I'm not.
So there's an Inman article that talks about the quote unquote controversial proposal to require addresses on MLS listings.
But wait, just from the headline, I don't get this.
I know I'm going to ask Clubhouse. I'm going to ask you if you're out there, you're a real estate agent watching the show. What's the controversy around requiring an address for a property listing? But
my question is, are they not required now?
That seems like the least controversial thing. So now you can put it in the MLS, but you can also make all the third-party websites. It'll say undisclosed address.
It'll just say Rancho Cucamonga or Little Rock, Arkansas, right?
Undisclosed address, Little Rock, Arkansas, right? Or even Arkansas. I don't even know if it says the city. So apparently it's controversial for a real estate agent who's trying to sell a property to list the address. I would love it. Okay, I've got someone raising their hand. Ellis San Jose. I'm going to bring you up now, but after I read the article, I want you to tell me why this is controversial in your opinion.
Controversial.
Right. So after some debate, the National Association of Realtors has approved a controversial proposal to require listings to include a property address upon submission to the multiple listing service. They go into the details in the committee meeting on Inman. You guys can read most of the story there. They previously shelved the address proposal at NAR's annual conference in November following a spirited debate for and against the mandate. After reconsideration by the committee's MLS Technology and Emerging Issues Advisory Board, the proposal was once again brought forward with an added language about including a parcel number or legal description if the address is not available. So previously, I think part of the controversy, as Dan says, was that some properties don't have addresses yet. So what are you supposed to do? Well, they still need a legal description or a parcel number. But I don't think that was what was stirring the pot of controversy. I think that was just a simple addendum or amendment they could make to this rule. I think there were bigger issues, and I don't fully understand them. So the proposal policy says, quote, residential listings filed with the MLS must include a property address where one exists at the time the listing is filed. If a property address is unavailable, then the parcel identification number must be submitted at that time the listing is filed. If no address or parcel identification number is available at the time the listing is filed, the listing must, at a minimum, contain a legal description of the property sufficient to describe the location of the property. This information shall be available to participants and subscribers at the time of filing. So participants and subscribers is an interesting wording there. I'm not sure that this will totally push it out to the third parties and solve the address undisclosed issue, but at least it'll have participants and subscribers who will now have the MLS data. And actually, if Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, if they become members of these boards, then they are subscribers. And so then on their third-party websites, it would have that data. So that's an interesting thing.
Well, Zillow's a broker now, so technically it's not a third party. I mean, it's a third party website, but it's their website and they are a broker. Yeah. Although when you sue them, they keep the two separate.
Right.
But yeah.
So this is the first part of the controversy, and I want to bring up a
yes,
guest,
it's working.
Ellis. I know, just changing how I say it just for you. Ellis is in Clubhouse. Ellis, are you on the other side of this debate? Can you tell me why this is controversial?
I don't understand this really. I mean, I'm in Southern California, and the only thing that I can think of is if it's like a high-profile celebrity or something that doesn't want that. But I mean, that's just.
Yeah, but then that's going to still hit all the. Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're going to have to require prices on there or something. Yeah,
it's crazy. You don't have to include prices. So you brought up a good point, Ellis, which is kind of in the next part of this article, and it talks about some of the pocket listings. So there was a clear cooperation loophole that was brought up, and this wasn't actually on the agenda. I think it's gonna kind of get put on there by all the other discussion. But basically, they're talking about the what's it called? Office exclusive listings. I think that's what they called it. And so, they tried to do the coming soon and pocket listings. They tried to rid our world of those things, or at least put things in place to where MLSs had a coming soon status, or once you signed a listing agreement, you had to submit that listing agreement to the MLS within 24 hours of it going live, which is what our local board has adopted with no coming soon status available. But what that allowed,
they tried to fix a thing, but they totally botched it.
Yeah. And what that allowed people to do was to market your properties. In the rule, it still says you could talk about and market this properties within your own brokerage and staff. So that gave a disproportionate, no, that's not the word I'm saying. An unproportionate, an unfair advantage to brokerages that have a disproportionate amount of real estate agents in their offices, to then say, well, we have all these agents. We're going to get all these pocket listings that are only available for people who are using us and our brokerage.
Right. And how does that best serve the seller? Right. It doesn't, if you're only showing it to those 300 agents and not 3,000 agents.
Correct. That basically creates the same problem that most of the brokerages in the U.S. have, where there's a couple of brokerages that try to market and keep everything in house. I mean, we talked about this like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I was doing a comparative market analysis on a property, and there was one outlier that sold way below the market. And I looked, and that broker had both sides of that, and it was, quote, sold before listed. So obviously there's a problem because it's not being marketed fully for the public. So, but you do have some instances like Ellis was talking about, where you have celebrities and things like that don't necessarily want their property to be marketed public. I think there should still be an avenue for that. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like with the clear cooperation and everything, but that was a point of hot discussion in this meeting. And
actually, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but we have a new product coming on the market here at the Bearded Men of Real Estate. It's just for high-end celebrity clients. All you do is call Ray or Dan.
Yep.
And we will network to our people. You don't have to.
Yep.
No one will know your address. No one will even know you're selling. But we will find the buyers for you. So all you have to do, and we'll also only do it for 6% total. That's it.
That's it. And we call it behind the beard.
Behind the beard. So get behind the beard with Ray and Dan today.
Yeah, list behind the
new
beard.
infomercial, by the way, coming up. Get behind the beard with Ray and Dan today.
Okay, so the second or third half of this, which that doesn't make sense, but hey, sounds like hockey. Okay, so the
tertiary point,
was this deal about MLSs sending sold data to third-party websites and participants. So right now there are people all across the country. There's some states that are non-disclosure states, so they don't have to disclose what a home is sold for. But they're going to put a rule in place that says you don't have to disclose what it's sold for, but you do have to disclose that it's sold. And there's a lot of real estate agents that want to keep this data to themselves. And when you do that, you don't have a great tool like Cloud CMA or whatever other CMA service that you want to use that can pull that sold data and deliver it very nicely to your clients right in their email. And so I'm very much about getting the data out there. It's the interpretation of the data that takes the skill. It's not that you can see the data, it's that you can see the data and then know what's going on next. If you as a real estate agent are trying to make the business, well, people are going to have to call me to get a value of their home because they can't see the data. that's the wrong avenue. I think you should give them the data and then say, if you want to know how to interpret this data or how to read this data so that you know what's taking place in the market, that's why you hire me. And if you as a real estate agent don't have those expertise, that's where you have to perfect your craft. You have to master your craft as a real estate agent so that you can look at the data and actually know what you're talking about.
Well, and also until we get Dumbledore's up and running, that's another BMORE product. That's going to be a public-facing MLS.
Yeah.
But until we get that up and running, I mean, third-party data is an amazing tool because I mean, for both buyers and sellers get to see, and again, whether Zillow's estimates are off or whatever, they get to see something that they're like, wow, maybe I should reach out. And if you're doing your job as an agent and staying top of mind, they're going to reach out to you, and because they're not getting that data from the MLS. There's no such thing unless you have them on a, you know, like every lead that we have, every seller lead, we have them on a basic market activity search. So they're seeing things, but most likely they're going to go on Zillow, Trulia, whatever. And why not have the data out there? And then it, like, just like Ray said, they all funnel back to me or Ray or any of the other agents watching the show or listening to the show. And then you get that data interpreted the proper way and what it means to actually sell. Okay, actually Zillow's used to be off by 15%. Now it's actually close to correct. So it's kind of interesting, but why not have this data out there? I mean, data is the most sought after thing in the world right now. Why not have it out there for your home? The thing I do understand, you know, not necessarily addresses or just closed data or sold data, but like pictures. I wish there was a way where you could, you know, you have all your pictures out there, your 30 to 65 or whatever your MLS allows. And then at the close, you shut all pictures down and they're removed from all. And all you have is that picture of the outside of your home. I wish that were a thing.
Really? But then appraisers are going to have a hard time to, like, you know, did that have green shed carpet or was it luxury vinyl plank or was it?
I get that. Or maybe there's an appraiser only, you know, if you're part of it. Because remember, if you're part of the MLS, those pictures are going to still be there. But when this third party sites are the ones, I think I said sharts. the third party sites are the ones that get shut down. And again, I don't want to go off topic here. Does that, I mean,
I'm for the photos being out there. I don't care. I think the photos being out there again.
I actually am not really concerned either way about it, but that's a thing that some sellers are like, but you know, my pictures, I just wish that if we could just shut that down. And then, because there's been some lawsuits about that. There's been some articles we've covered on the show about that. But like an address, you know, and then sold data. If your house sold, like, you know, I don't know. It's also kind of goes along with people that don't want to put a sign up in their yard. Like, why do you want to be a secret listing? You know, I don't understand that stuff.
I think if a seller wants them taken down, they should be. I mean, if the seller wants to be off of Google Street View, they can get their home like covered,
blurred out. Yeah,
blurred out. So
so why can't that be a thing? And I'm also concerned more for the buyers. You know, they moved into a home and I've never listed this home for sale, but people can look inside my home right now, you know, that kind of thing. But third party data is a great tool for me personally, because people come to me and say, how do I interpret this? How do I see what my actual home is worth, or how do I see what I actually offer on these homes, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Logan, hop back on the Clubhouse. Logan, do you have if you want to flash your mic, if you have a comment about one of these things that we talked about? I think you came up a little earlier, but I may have missed you. Yeah. Okay. Let me bring you up real quick. And Logan, first, I want you to answer a really important question. Is it data or is it data?
Data.
It's DD.
What?
No,
it's a different way.
What does it say it again?
No, it's data. I know some people like data, but it's data.
I totally say data all the time. Okay. All right. Well, go ahead. Give me your comment.
But hey, that's the multiple point view you can get here by watching the Real Estate Show.
We ask the hard hitting questions.
Yeah. Is it data or data?
I just wanted to comment on the purchase application data, because that's like my lifeline, oxygen and water. It's a little bit screwy all year round. If you look at it, you know, with kind of a naked eye, 2021 has 21% average year-over-year growth, which is really strong for this data line. Typically, this data line has mid-single to maybe high single-digit year-over-year growth, and it's at pre-cycle highs. So on paper, it looks like the strongest we've had in like 15 years. But you have to do like COVID adjustments to it. And of course, last year, you know, the data lines were being negative 35, 34%. So the year-over-year data for the rest of the year And everything, it's not just housing data, like retail sales, everything's going to look screwy. It's also going to be negative for the rest of the year in the second half. Purchase application data had a parabolic rebound and just had this makeup demand where you're going to have too high of a comps. So I wrote this like a few months ago for Housing Wire that we're going to have negative year over year. You just kind of have to ignore that, kind of like you ignore the year over year data in the last few weeks. Like we've had data like 57%, 51%, 51%. These are all low comps. But earlier in the year, we were showing double-digit year-over-year growth. That's part of that is the makeup demand. We never finished 2020 existing home sales where we should have when we started the year in 2020 before COVID hit. So some of this is also makeup demand from last year, something I wrote about toward the end of the year. So it's all kind of screwed up, and you just kind of just have to like push through 2021 until we get some kind of normalcy. But typically this data line, the seasonality is done after the first week of May. So really after May, every single year, total volumes always fall. And every year people look at the chart and go, look, housing's crashing. And every year it doesn't do that. So the total volumes fall after May. That's a seasonal factor. The year-over-year data is always what you want to track, but now that's screwed up. So be careful of people talking about total volumes falling and big negative year-over-year prints. We're gonna see negative year-over-year prints and total volumes falling. That's perfectly normal. The trend data is actually fine. We're talking about mid-single digits with pre-cycle highs in demand. And usually after May, you don't really get too big of a move in the total marketplace. So we're looking at probably another year of pre-cycle highs in sales, both new and existing homes. So it's going to be fine, but you're going to get some people who are just going to misrepresent the data in the second half of 2021.
And I know some of you out there are thinking, why would anyone in the world want to misrepresent this data? And it's for clicks. It's so that you will click it and talk about it. It's so that people will talk about their news program and will tune in. You know, if they could talk about the housing market may be crashing tonight at 5, then they could sell advertising against that. So that's basically what we're seeing here is the push and pull between an actual economist and the newsies. So thanks, Logan, for coming up and kind of adding some to that. Hopefully producer Matt will take that little excerpt and then put it right behind when we talked about that article. So that was good. Thanks always for adding to the discussion. And we're about to talk about a article on Housing Wire. And I'm curious to know what you think of this, the volume hungry mortgage lenders loosening credit standards. So Dan, give us the lowdown. What's going on? Is this the preamble to what we saw in what was it, mortgage-backed securities and all that stuff happening in the crash of 2008?
The liar loans and all that stuff.
Are we headed that direction again?
No. I always like to give producer Matt one thing. No.
Okay. All right. Why not? Let's talk about this article.
Okay. So the headline, and usually, and I know we have one of the contributors and one of the actual journalists from Housing Wire. Usually Housing Wire is not very clickbaity. We love Housing Wire. But this one is, it's volume hungry mortgage lenders loosen credit standards. What do you immediately think of, Ray?
I immediately think of the crash.
Right.
But they're not saying in the headline, to be fair to James, who wrote the article, they're not saying in the headline, market is going to crash because of. Yeah. Okay. So it's actually well crafted in how they do it.
Okay, I get that. Sorry, I just kicked my cat. I apologize. So because the article doesn't really cover there's a little blurb kind of at the end where they mention that they are either loosening up or thinking about loosening up or leading to loosening up kind of thing. But this is a really number heavy and percentage heavy article, which sometimes Housing Wire can be. And you heard Logan. That dude knows his numbers, obviously. So if you want going over to Housing Wire, you can see this in the title is Volume Hungry Mortgage Lenders Loosen Credit Standards. So mortgage credit availability increased by 2.2% in April as mortgage lenders fight for borrowers in an increasingly competitive market. The Mortgage Bankers Association said Tuesday that the Mortgage Credit Availability Index, didn't know that was a thing, but now I do, that the MCAI increased to 128.1 last month. A decline in the MCAI suggests that lending standards are tightening, while a higher number suggests loosening credit standards. The MCAI on conventional loans increased 4.8%, while MCAI on government loans increased 0.1%, so not really an increase. Of the two component indices of the conventional MCAI, the jumbo MCAI, I'm saying MCAI a lot.
I mean, yeah.
There's a lot. Maybe Matt can track it, and as I'm, he'll put on the screen 1, 2, 3. But of the two components indices, jumbo increased 6.9%. There's a joke there if you want it. And the conforming MCAI rose 12.6%. So again, rising means they're loosening standards. Following the Consumer Finance Protection Bureaus, this is kind of the big point here. Following the CFPB's retiring of the Appendix Q patch. Do we all remember what that is, Ray?
Yep.
The debt to income ratio is 43%, all that stuff, right? Some of the biggest wholesale mortgage lenders have introduced or loosened terms on their prime jumbo products. Rocket Mortgage and United's wholesale mortgage have rolled out jumbo products that go up to $2 million amounts and can be used for primary homes and investment properties. That's kind of a big one. In recent months, several depository banks that tightened lending standards during the Rona have indicated that they have or will soon loosen underwriting requirements to capture the rise in purchase business in the non-conforming space. So it's kind of, again, if you want, go over to Housing Wire, but you see where the article, it's well crafted, but it's not really.
Yeah, it's hard. So
you don't have to show income to get a loan right now. It's nothing crazy like that. It's more non-conforming stuff.
It's not a no-doc stated income loan. Those were cool.
It's not a liar loan, no.
So, I mean, it's an interesting, in a way, I think it's probably healthy that some of the standards are loosened, but at the same time, I don't, a lot more buyers is not something I see the market needing. So I know
that goes back to kind of the Biden credits and the Biden tax credits, right, and the grants and all that stuff. That's helping buyers. We need to do something for sellers, man.
Yeah, what are we going to do for sellers?
Right.
Yeah, don't evict the sellers out of their home. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. It doesn't look like a big move one way or the other. It just looks like probably kind of a normal thing as the economy starts to recover. And maybe it was some loosening of the constraints compared to what they tightened last year due to COVID.
Well, yeah. And remember the Rona, so I think informationally for agents and even for consumers out there, we're doing our job by getting this info out there. But the biggest thing to remember, I think, Ray, you just mentioned it a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago, they were getting so busy, they were tightening their standards. So I think this is just kind of the tail wagging, right? Like this is the other side. Well, okay, we want a little more business again, so we're going to loosen that. But it's not on all products.
It was almost a year ago to the month. Is that a thing? I just made that a thing. It was a year ago to the month that lenders were telling me that they were swamped and that appraisers were starting to get backed up, and that it wasn't because of purchase activity, it was because of refinance activity. And we talked about a lot of lenders at that time tightening their lending constraints because they would only want the best ones, and they only want the best ones to be able to do the refis, and they were also tightening their constraints to get people to stop applying for mortgages. So
and it wasn't
the MCAI number is not one I track often, but I would love to go back to last year and see what that number was compared to what it is now, and see if maybe it's just kind of a return to some kind of normalcy as far as where the market is.
Yeah. And remember, it was their own. A lot of private lenders were like, okay, usually it's 580 credit score or 620 credit score. Now we want only 680 and up.
Maybe Logan knows. Let me ask Logan.
Okay, so
Logan,
this is actually my area that I gave probably the most interviews on because of the MBA index.
Nice.
It is slightly flawed, and if you actually go back to like 2005, you could see it just went parabolically up in terms of loose lending standards. What happened last year in March is that we had like a little mortgage market meltdown. The certain lenders could not lend because their investors weren't backing them up. So you had about 4.5 to 6.2% of loans that could have been done before March 9th that got tightened. Because what happens in every recession is credit tightens up. Now, this was like the dream for the housing bears. They wanted credit to tighten up so housing could crash and these I got to tell you, man, there are some crazy people on Clubhouse that are housing bubble boys, by the way. And what
Yeah,
I
what Steve
heard was that
mentioned.
you only had a slight tightening on products that weren't very used much, like some bank statement loans, some jumbo products. So in theory, it was tight on that index, but not really to the loans that were given, because is credit tight with all the originations we saw last year with purchases and refinances? No.
Mm-mm.
So on paper, that index looks like credit is still tight and it's going to loosen up and things. It doesn't have really much value either way, because it's a marginal low utilization product that they're working off from. So it's a bit misleading that it looks like, well, credit is getting easier or credit is getting tighter. There was no real tight credit during the crisis in bigger fashion. What we saw in 2002 to 2005 is that there were loans being done as bigger portions of the loan balances that were given, and that credit got extremely tight because you had 80-20, 80-20, 80-10-10, option arms, IO, all those things. We don't have that. Pretty much majority of Americans just get 30-year fixed, very boring loans, which is a good thing. And that market was clear. So last year when things were busy, because of refinances, because, let's say people couldn't close them, that's a different subject than lenders getting tight. Like some lenders actually shut down because they had no investors to back them up. Very small portion of the marketplace. So when this index actually rises again, it's not much of a story, just like it falling down during the crisis. It wasn't much of a story either.
So there you go. One of the things I love about Logan is what I think on platitudes he actually shares with real data. So that's amazing. I'd love to have you on here, and thank you for outing the Clubhouse. What you call? Did you call them Fallout Boys? Oh, Crash Boys.
Crash Boys.
No,
yeah, Crash Bros.
It was the housing bubble boys, and then I gave them the new term, the forbearance Crash Bros.
Yeah.
And oh my, like I go into some of these rooms and like literally, these are not data people. You could just see by how they talk that none of them have ever looked at a census data in their lifetime. And that's the problem, is that they don't, like, the things that drive housing economics. I mean, economics itself is demographics and productivity, and like the rest is stamp collecting. But housing is driven by demographics and rates. And none of these people actually looked at a census data. You could just see by how they talk and how they refer. So when they went into the 2016, 17, 18, 19 bubble phase, and it didn't happen, then 2020 happened. So they all had to go in. So you can't blame them. This was supposed to be their crash. And then guess what happened? The exact opposite. So I think for me, it's like everyone has to defend their own keep. This was my whole economic model for like a long time. Like years 2020 to 2024 is going to be different because you've got the best housing demographic patch ever and you have the lowest mortgage rates ever. So you have to worry about home prices taking off. This concept does not go with the bubble boys, because think about it. If you're grifting that for 6-7 years and this happens, what does it make you look like? Maybe the worst talented group of people we've ever had in our history. That's kind of my gig here, about showing people why they were wrong. Because it's like, we all get it. They whiffed. But if you don't explain why they got it wrong, it doesn't do anybody any good. It's just like, stock goes up, stock goes down, who cares? But why they were wrong means that the future generations of people could understand that demographics really matter, and the U.S. has an advantage over everyone, because we have a younger workforce. Look at the jobs data. Job openings, 8.1 million. The thing was at 2 million in 2008. Leading economic index, retail sales, everything is much better this time because people are stuck in 2008, but the economy moved past them. That means we left all these people behind 12 years ago, and they can't give it up because doom and gloom sells, trash sells. Yeah. And now it's like, well, we are just now in this early expansion, and we're just going to talk about the next crash is going to come. And this is just part of the process that we all have to live with in a social media 5-second, headline world. But there are people out there who believe that math, facts, and data matter, and that the rest is kind of storytelling.
Yeah, you guys need to be sure to follow Logan. Click on his, if you're in the Clubhouse group, just click on his face and hit the follow, and then hit the bell icon, because there are a lot of people on Clubhouse that are grossly misleading exactly what's happening. And you can look up Logan also on Twitter. It's LoganMohTashami. So be sure you guys follow him on Clubhouse. And there was somebody, Logan, on Clubhouse that dropped into a room, and she was a real estate agent that claimed all these expertise and investments and everything. And she had like 14,000 followers. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe she kind of knows what she's talking about. And she was one of your crash bros. And she just went on and on and on about how the market's crashing, it's going down. And a lot of us were kind of mentioning all these, very positive demographic changes and what's happening, what's actually happening. And the answers were very shallow and thin. And it drove me crazy because yes, and here she is with like 14,000 people like listening to what she's saying. So if you guys want to actually hear the truth, definitely follow Logan, follow his articles on Housing Wire, and be sure to tune into the Bearded Real Estate Show, because
Well, and amazingly enough, there's no left or right, up or down, black or white. There's just numbers. He's just presenting the data, and here's the interpretation of the data. It's not you can't leave it up for opinion. This is the data. I think that point he made about was it 2 million job openings in 2008? Now there's 8.1 million or whatever it is. I mean, that's a tiny indicator right there of where the economy's at.
What was that, Logan? Go ahead.
Here's one thing I think I know who that person is. There's when the U.S. economy was recovering in the midpoint of last year, everybody started sending me YouTube videos of all these people who were talking about crash. And I'm just going to say this. If they actually really believed in their own stuff, all of them would have sold their homes last year and this year, right? Because you're going to be the person that's going to catch the Case-Shiller index when it's down to the 200-day moving average, right? These are not, they don't even believe their own stuff. That's how you have to look. Like, nobody's this bad. Like, no American citizen is really this bad unless they're lying for clickbaits. That's the one thing you could talk about. So the best way for me to explain it, to make sense, is that post 1996, it's very rare in the United States of America to have less than 4 million home sales. So because mortgage rates went lower, adjusting to population, the workforce grew, so you had an extra layer of demand. It's only happened 3 times. 2 of them are like one-off events, COVID 1-month sales, the aftermath of the tax credit. In 2008, we had a few months that were under 4 million. That was the beginning of the kind of the weaker demographic patch rolling into 2020. Mm-hmm. What these people are talking about is that you can have the best housing demographics ever recorded in history with the lowest mortgage rates ever recorded in history. People are not that crazy. Right? Nobody in their my people are like PhD economists that work for housing shops, and we sit there and we're thinking, like, what are they looking at? You're looking at a 2.5 to 3 million sales decline within a year. That didn't even happen even during the bubble crash, because they can't sell their websites talking about data. Because let me tell you, I am boring as you get. Like, my stuff will put you to sleep better than any kind of hardcore liquor out there. But if you actually show people, because guess what? The whiff happened, right? 2020, 2021, we're pretty much, for the most part, are almost done. So how do they get it wrong? Because they don't believe in economic models. And if you don't believe in economic models, you're grifting. So this was the big whiff. Like, we had people talking about bubbles, which means like a 60 or 70% decline in 1 year, going back to 2012 levels. We've had we're going to have 20% increases. This means that some of these people have missed by 80 to 90% in some of their home price calls. You can't.
That's a phenomenal point.
you can't be that bad. Like, nobody's that bad unless you're professionally lying. And then it makes sense. So it's all an act. This is why these stock traders you see on CNBC, the Fed, I'm bearish, inflation. They're all long the markets, right?
Yeah.
People can't talk without trolling the United States of America, because that's what gains attention. Boring people like myself, no. And if we actually try to run a business model like that, it wouldn't work. So the problem, they got caught. Right. And that's the thing. They got caught and now they don't know. So I'm telling you, I know some of these people, they're all lying. They don't even believe any of this stuff, but they can't sell their information if they say, well, housing is just going to have very stable demand, and we're probably going to be at 6.2 million total sales, new and existing homes for a few years. And until mortgage rates rise, it'll be a very stable, boring market. Who wants to hear that stuff? Right. But
yeah, there's two opposing business models at play. One is a business model in which people are selling content to media aggregates who then sell that content against advertising. And the other business model are people that are actually in business in the economy. And it's just a different business model. If I'm looking at the data differently than what they're looking at it, and some of them, like you said, are just lying. They're not even looking at the stuff. They're not even data people, because they're not trying to make money off of it like that. I'm trying to make money off of guiding people through the buying and selling of homes. I'm trying to make money through helping agents interpret what's happening in the marketplace to position themselves for success. And if you're looking at the headlines, those people are focused on a totally different business model. So it doesn't make sense. Like you're saying, Logan, you're one who's actually focused on, I'm going to give this information to people so they can help make decisions about their lives, not I need to figure out how to sell this. So it's a very different model. So thanks again.
Just remember, it's really hard to be off by 75% on home prices in 2 years. Like, do you know how crazy you have to be to say, well, this is a bubble, so this is going to crash back to 2012 levels, and guess what? We had a 20% home price gain. That's a 75 to 80% miss on their forecast.
This full swing there.
People just usually aren't that off.
So this is a clip that I'm going to totally take out and put in my next Susie Orman video. So that's good, Logan. Thank you.
And by the way, Susie Orman has 650,000 followers just on Facebook alone. I'm on her page now. 650,000 people. And by the way, if you follow, you get notifications when they post. You don't just like it. When you like something, you don't get it. So that means, because she has 591,000 likes, but 650,000 people follow it. And it may be a bunch of us realtors that are just waiting for the next horrible prediction she made, because a year ago she said that the housing market will crash by 50%, which 12 years ago we keep talking about that was 19%. She's saying that it's going to be almost 3 times that, and still has 650,000 followers. So to go along with what Logan's saying, it's insane to me that people follow it and follow this person's advice, and if she were correct, if she believed her own advice, why didn't she sell all of her assets? Why?
Yeah, Mario Flores says y'all should see the misinformation on TikTok. It's crazy. Yeah, that's true.
No, you should not. Do not go on TikTok, especially for that. That stuff isn't. Every now and then someone will send something to me. Like, did you see this? Can't even believe what people are saying on there. And people are like, "Oh, this is great info. Share." Oh my God.
What'd you say, Logan?
The reality is that most Americans don't care what these people say, because housing is the cost of shelter to your own capacity to own a debt. So Americans aren't soft people that get persuaded by like gypsy cults that are running around. So within 5 to 6 weeks during a pandemic, more people bought homes in 2020 and 21 than any period from 2008 to 2019, because they're just looking for a home to live in. And no Susie Orman or no Bubble Boys or no Gold Bugs or whatever. None of that really matters, because Americans are not soft, whiny people sitting and listening to crash cult people listen. And that's what 2020 to 2021 was important, right? This was a shot at all the conspiracy theory people for many years who said America's going to collapse, we're about to flex our American muscle against the world. Like we're the only country, a mature economy, that has a growing prime age labor force. China doesn't have it. Japan doesn't have it. Europe doesn't have it. Like, it's us. We're the superpower here. And 2020 and 21 on a historical basis will be remembered, especially from people that looked at COVID and said, this is the beginning of the second depression and everything. Within 5-6 weeks, things started to come back. And it's on a historical basis. When you go back 100 years, part of my whole America's Back economic model recovery that I wrote last April 7th, for Housing Wire, is we needed to record this so these people get shot up in history as, oh my God, you remember Grandma? Grandma said like home prices are going to crash 60% and unemployment rates are going to go. They have to be remembered, because advantage, disadvantage. You get the advantage of trolling the US, but the disadvantage is that if you make the biggest mistake ever recorded in history, you should be remembered by that. Name and face and statement, boom, and it's over, guys. Recession was over. That's it. We're early in expansion. This was the biggest whiff in history. There's no other time that we could actually model. I've actually looked back. Were so many people that were this wrong? No. And it's good for the country. It's good for our children and our grandchildren to remember this, because education does pay off. Reading pays off. And looking at numbers and data actually does have some value.
Speak to my heart. That's good. You need a different picture of you on Clubhouse, Logan. You need one of you dropping the mic. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I get goosebumps when he talks, and I forget that I'm doing a show with
the economist talks.
Yeah, I love it because I forget I'm doing a show when he starts talking. I'm just like, I just feel lucky and privileged to hear this stuff directly from a man who culls all of this data and puts it into articles for us.
There you go. Okay, so let's talk about something else crazy that's going on. And
can we talk about another one of these where they lose money, but somehow
something's happening? So the first article I want to cover is on Inman. It's by Jim Dalrymple II. I wonder if this is the same Jim Dalrymple that played. Let me see.
No.
No. Okay.
Different.
So Jim Dalrymple, he talks about Open Door. And it says the report shows that between January and March of 2021, Open Door brought in $747 million in revenue, a 200% jump compared to the previous quarter.
Awesome.
The company also sold 2,462 homes, 190% compared to the previous 3 months, and bought 3,594 homes, up 78% compared to the end of 2020.
That sounds great, right?
Analyst expectations. The report, $623 million in revenue, represented stark contrast to Open Door's last earnings report in February at the time during the pandemic, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So
this sounds amazing.
This is Wu. This is a quote from Eric Wu. He said, while we are proud of the results, we are energized and focused on the opportunities ahead of us. Still, while the report exceeded expectations, it showed that year-over-year revenue for the quarter dropped by 40%. What?
Starting to take a turn here, Ray.
All right. From 1.3 billion in the first 3 months of 2020. Of course, most of that period in 2020 was the pandy. So we got to remember that. But it looks all good. The company had a net loss during the first quarter of 270 million.
Yeah. Wait, what?
What?
A net loss of 27 million?
Nope. The company had a net loss during the first quarter of 270 million.
Okay, a gross loss or a net loss?
Net loss.
Net.
Yeah.
Oh.
So revenue though was up. So what they're not making on the margin, they're making up for in volume. So now this is a different take, and this one is on Housing Wire. Amid expansion, Open Door lost 270 million in Q1.
Much more direct.
Instant Homebuyers revenue also dropped 40% year over year. Ooh. Wow. Wait, what? Instant Homebuyers revenue dropped 40% year over year.
Instant Homebuyers also knows what?
Yeah. So now this is the quote that Wu said in this one. We're getting better and more efficient at this, Wu said, providing as evidence that Open Door sold more homes during the first weekend on the market for higher prices and a higher sell. Another quote is having an exceptional first quarter. Wheeler described. Wheeler is the Kerry Wheeler is the chief financial officer there. So, I mean, you can read the full thing on Housing Wire and kind of see how this is compared. The San Francisco-based Instant Home Buyer announced a net income loss of $270 million on Tuesday. 421% jump compared to the first quarter's $62 million deficit. So this is above my pay grade. You see some articles touting the revenue of Open Door and the Instant iBuyer program. And the reason why we cover Open Door and some of the other companies in our industry is because we've been covering them since they launched. And so we were talking about iBuyers. Everyone said, oh, iBuyers are going to replace real estate agents. And we said, no, they're just going to be increased competition for real estate investors. And that appears to be what's happened. It's not taking our jobs. And it doesn't look like it's doing a great job of making income, which a lot of people point to as a way to know if a company is successful or not. I know there's other ways in the days of venture capital and eyeballs versus, building a platform where people are watching versus making money, a la Twitter. However, it seems like a company that is buying and selling real estate would be benefited by making money, unless there's something else I'm missing.
Well, it's the data. They're trying to drive people to their website. That's what really generates the revenue, and then ad spend, right?
Okay, so let's say so they're generating the data and the views on their website. They're wanting people to go there, and then they can like sell advertising against it. That should be a line item on their
100%
sheet that would also note that. So apparently that's not a strategy that they're not selling the data yet,
or they just don't mention it.
They were founded in 2014. They weren't really big at that time, of course.
No, we've made them big. You're welcome. It's our show.
Yep. All right, so that's the Open Door thing. I don't see any hands in Clubhouse. Let me see if there's any comments here. Matt Clinton said that net loss sounds pretty gross. Yeah, that's good.
It is pretty gross. It's just interesting to read this stuff. You know, they build these platforms in these companies based on being disruptors, but are they really? They're not really.
They haven't been really.
No, they just kind of live on, I don't know, kind of like the Crash Bros do, just kind of on, hey, we do enough kind of thing. We're still here. We're going to
tear up the industry.
And it may, there's someone's raising their hand, by the way, but it may benefit or work for some sellers, but it doesn't work for all sellers. I'd say it works for less percentage sellers than it does for the average seller.
Kelly Jones, what's up, Kelly? I sent you the invite to come on up. What is your take on the Open Door thing? Maybe you are living at that higher pay grade than me and can see the potential revenue production or the potential investment opportunity that one might have in an Open Door world. Maybe you can explain it to me. What's going on with them?
Actually, I don't have any. I'm not sure about Open Door, but I actually just, we did a webinar with Ribbon, and maybe y'all could talk about that later. But I just wanted to ask Ray, because I'm still getting used to Clubhouse. You made a comment earlier. There are two types of businesses in this industry, one that are content creators and one, can you repeat that? Because I needed to write that down.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just saying, Logan was talking about the Crash Bros and the people that are putting the headlines out, and it's a different business model because they're looking at a way to sell their articles or sell their content and get views, get people to look at it. So,
or someone gives them content or something to sell.
Yeah. So there's two types of businesses in the information sector. There's some who their primary goal is to get the clicks, the BuzzFeed headlines, right? And then there's the other business model that people are using the data in order to operate in business. And that's a very different thing. Whenever we're looking at the data, we want to know what's happening so that we can then make decisions and help. For me, I help my agents position themselves in the marketplace to be better. And I help our clients make better decisions about buying and selling their home. And I would never use the article or the piece of information that is bought and sold for the highest number of clicks. I want the honest look at exactly what's happening. So that's kind of a summation of what I said. But luckily, Kelly, Matt Clanton will take that exact soundbite from our show and he's going to send it to you. So we can send it to you.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Just give him more to do.
Yeah.
Comb through this entire hour and a half show.
Yeah. I like piling on Matt. He's good. So that's good. Well, thanks for coming up. All right, Dan, we have one more little article. Do you want to hit that? I think it'll be a fairly quick one, but it's an interesting point.
Yeah. So I didn't have time. I'm going to open this.
It's a flash headline. I would say.
Flash. So mortgage forbearance drops 4.36%. And this is another one from Housing Wire. And this is from, let's see, Alex Roja. So I'm just going to kind of cover it just real quick, but I think the headline kind of says it all. Mortgage, we're under 5%, which when I don't recall, is it 12% when when people were getting foreburned? If you haven't seen the infomercial, oh my God, I can't say the infomercial. You need to go over to the Bearded Men of Real Estate show on YouTube and find that commercial. There's a fun surprise at the end by one of our contributors and one of our best friends, Pete Thorpe.
Yes, I forgot about that. That's amazing, actually.
He was the he's the foreburned mascot, we'll call him. But you know, it was at 12%, then it was at 8%. Then it's been hovering in the 6 to 7%. Now it's under 5%. So, and I always questioned, you know, if you're in forbearance, did you actually want to be in forbearance? Are you just not paying, or can you pay and you're in forbearance? What is all that? But the downward trend of borrowers in forbearance picked up speed in the last week of April, falling 11 basis points to 4.36% of servicers' portfolio volume, according to the Mortgage Bankers Associations. They're getting a lot of shout outs this week, by the way. That is the 10th consecutive week of decreases, and it reflects a faster rate of exits and a steady low level of new requests. Given forbearance numbers typically decline towards the beginning and end of the month, nearly all investor types experience some type of drop in forbearance as of May 2nd. It goes on to say Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and it breaks down all of them. It even says, let's see, it breaks down everything. So there is also a rising number of borrowers who did not make their monthly payments, 14.8%. Let's see, here we go. The MBA now estimates that there are still 2.2 million homeowners in some form of forbearance plan. And while a great number have exited and continued to perform, the remaining population is showing a need for additional support. So we're not out of the woods, Ray. It's not over. But this is a great sign of people going back to work, either got a new job or are back from, a furlough or whatever may have happened to them, and they're back to it. So those numbers declining is obviously a good thing, especially with, and I haven't looked it up this week, but I usually check every week what are unemployment rates at. So I think they go hand in hand. So it's a good sign. And I want to go back to a year ago, but if anyone does have any questions about forbearance, make sure you're reaching out to an actual lender. Don't listen to just a headline grabbing real estate agent that doesn't know what they're talking about.
There you go.
Yeah.
Reach out to some of Kelly Jones' people. She's on the lending side of it. So there you go. Well, thanks everybody for watching the show. Appreciate you guys too. And tell everybody where they can find you, man.
You can find me on Club. I'm everywhere, but Clubhouse now. I'm literally following the show. I see people raising their hands. This is pretty cool. So cool. It's D Ludwig Rocks, DLUDWIGROCKS. It's the same over on Instagram. That's where I post most of my content and my stories. So if you want to see some really sketchy, kind of questionable stuff, go watch my stories. I'm just kidding. Or am I?
Or dad coaching at softball, one of the two.
Yeah, or I'm coaching. I'm dadding, or I'm coaching softball. I do a lot of these things. I don't post a lot of real estate stuff. I think real estate is boring, but I post things when they're pertinent. But also, hey, if you're struggling right now, reach out to someone, ask for help. It's okay. And if you aren't struggling, reach out to someone and ask if they need help. Please do that.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. You can also find me at Ray Zorback. It's RAYZORBACK. And
we hadn't mentioned Christina yet.
Christina, she says, hello, fellas. Hello, Christina. Thanks so much for watching the show. And if you're not in the RETV group, it's RE space TV. Join that. Christina was on there yesterday, and we were talking a lot about YouTube. She's a YouTube expert. So ironically, joining us on the Facebook stream. Just
ironically, she's joined us on both, by the way.
Yeah, she's joined us on. So, but we had a great talk because she's got millions and millions of views there. So check out the RE space TV group. You have to apply to join that. Basically, you just have to answer the questions. You have to be in the real estate industry and in some kind of interest to increase your media presence, because that's what it's all about. It's all about.
And you're going to get great value. I think, was it last week or so, or maybe 2 weeks ago, Ray went live with the other admins in there, and they were talking about which cameras and what's important and kind of setups and stuff. So it's, if you're a basic, just getting into it, just wanting to get in video, or you've been doing this for a while, you're gonna get some great tips on RETV.
There you go. So find us, connect with us there on Instagram, RAYZORBACK, Ray Zorback. And we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for helping contribute to the show. Logan, really appreciate your insight there too. So thanks everybody. Follow, subscribe, hit the bell. Bye.